Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus. Now, Christ apologists will actually sometimes use Suetonius in order to argue against a mythical Jesus. But I have to be honest, I've never seen a source actually kill itself quicker than Suetonius does.
Engineer, a conscious pioneer, a logic general, a reason brigadier. More bullshit from the pulpit. Meet me in the comment section and you get schooled, bitch. The godless engineer.
Now, if you don't know who this guy was, Suetonius was actually a Roman historian who recorded the lives and other events of Roman Caesars. Now, not only does this source kill itself, as some apologists would definitely argue against, but it actually provides some corroboration as to there being, the Bible being laden with facts in order to give it a false representation that it's a historical document. Now, here's the original reference in Suetonius to what a lot of people would think is a mentioning of Christ.
Iudaeos impulsore Christos idue tumultuantis Roma expulit.
And yeah, that was Google Translator, because there's no way that I'm going to try it to even pronounce that shit. But here is what the verse actually means in English. The Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Christus. He expelled them from Rome. Now, this passage in Suetonius doesn't actually give us any kind of rock-solid evidence that there was a Christ around the supposed time that he was supposed to be living, or that, he existed in any kind of way. A lot of apologists will espouse the idea that this proves that Christ founded the Christian religion, but it just simply fails to do that on every level. Now, there are 3 reasons why I totally disregard Suetonius as proving that Christ actually existed. Number 1, it's a non-contemporary account. Suetonius lived between 69 CE and 130 CE, and having written this particular portion around 110 CE. So this reference isn't even technically in the 1st century, it's in the 2nd century. Given this, there is no way that Suetonius could actually give us a contemporary account of Christ living at the time. Although this passage does give us some kind of hint at the Jews being expelled from Rome, which happened a few times throughout the history of Jews and Rome. Now, this is only a supplemental evidence for proving that Jews were kicked out of Rome at some point, because there are plenty of other more contemporary sources that show that, the Jews were being kicked out of Rome several times. Did I mention several times? Because it happened a lot. They pissed people off. And sometimes it was because of their radical missionary work. Reason number 2, is it Christus or Christus? This is a very fine line to straddle here, because a lot of apologists will want to come at you with, well, that really does just mean Christ. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. That's just a different way on how to spell it. That's complete and utter bullshit. Christus was actually a free man or slave name of the time that meant good, useful, or handy. While Christus meant the anointed, or, it's usually referred to an anointed object or a person. So it's really just a title. Now, in this passage, of course, you can see that Suetonius is using Christus and is referring to an agitator that got the Jews to actually use urban violence in order to, basically terrorism. These names were confused in antiquity, so I can understand why, apologists now would be confused, because, it's pretty apparent that they don't learn things over time. Now, a simple reference to Christ in this way isn't going to be rock solid enough to prove that Christ actually existed, being that Christ is a title. Number 3, this particular passage only really proves that Jews existed at the time and they were expelled from Rome. Now, this particular passage refers to a time in 51 CE in Rome, and, all this really proves is that the Jews were in Rome at the time, and that they got kicked out. And this wasn't the first time that the Jews were booted out of Rome either. They'd actually been kicked out 2 times before, once in 139 BCE for aggressive missionary work, and in 19 CE by Tiberius for the exact same shit. Basically, Christians have been a nuisance since they were Jews. Now, what Suetonius does do for the Bible is that it actually gives some corroborating evidence for Acts 18:2 when Paul states that, they were passing some Jews as they were being kicked out of Rome. So, I mean, you could tell that, not that you really had to have this in order to know for certain, but you know that there are facts that are littered throughout the Bible to give it a facade of it being a historical document, and that's what a lot of Christians love to just hang on to. Now, there is one way that I wouldn't argue against this particular passage, and that's Jesus wasn't in Rome. First of all, Jesus didn't have to be in Rome in order to be the instigator of said violence that was supposedly caused by these Jews that were following a Christus, normally called Christians. Do you see how they get confused? Christians. Words are so hard. Now, if you really think about the time period in which Suetonius was reporting on, these incidents were supposedly happening around 51 CE and 52 CE, between those dates. It really isn't very useful to argue that Jesus wasn't there when he supposedly died in the 30s. If anything, just his memory would have instigated the stuff there. And it would have been some actual, cultish person leading them. But of course, as you guys know, I don't think that Jesus even existed. And to say that the Christus is actually means Christ is totally disregarding the fact that Christus was an actual name of the time and was the name of a Jewish agitator that caused these things. And they were normally referred to as Christians because they followed this one guy. And if you haven't seen my Tacitus, whether or not Tacitus was authentic, I suggest you go and you look at that video. But we can't actually corroborate with Tacitus what he would have called this particular Jewish agitator because those particular pieces of information are missing from his references, conveniently. If you like my Did Jesus Exist series, please go down below, hit the like button. Leave me a comment if you disagree or if you do agree with me. Let me know if you have some arguments for this actually meaning Christ. Good, solid evidence that it actually means Christ. If you love this series as well as my logical fallacy series, my gameplays, or even my godless politics or interviews or any of my shit, if you like my content in any kind of way, please go down below, consider becoming a patron, and help me make this channel better.